Hello, you're welcome to Carrie's Tutors, your best companion in physics. Today we are going to be looking at vectors. Now, we have two quantities. We have scalar quantities and we have vector quantities. Now, what are vector quantities? Vector quantities are quantities that has both magnitude and direction. Today, now when we are given two vectors and we are asked to add. Now, you can add scalar the normal way. Let's say, for example, you are given a quantity of 10 Newton, 15 Newton, and it's a scalar quantity. You can do your normal addition. But when it comes to vector, you cannot add your vector the same way you add your scalar quantities. Now, we have different cases. Let's say, for example, you are given two vectors that are traveling in the same direction. Let's say, for example, you have vector 1. You have vector 1. Let's say, for example, 12 F1, let's say 12 Newton, and we have our F2, 5 Newton. If you have to add these vectors together, you want to add these two vectors together because the two vectors are traveling in the same direction. You can add it to your normal direction. Your resultant vector is going to give us F1 plus F2. It's going to give us 12 Newton plus 5 Newton. Our resultant vector is going to give us 17 Newton. Why? Because the two vectors are traveling in the same direction. Now, we have another case when you have two vectors traveling in opposite direction. Two vectors, case 1, case 2, when you have two vectors traveling in opposite direction. Let's say, for example, you have the first vector F1 traveling this direction, force 2 traveling this direction. Now let's assume this is 12 Newton and this is 5 Newton. Because the two vectors are traveling in opposite direction, addition of this, the resultant of these two vectors is going to give us F1 minus F2. So our F1 is 12 Newton minus 5 Newton. So our resultant vector is going to give me 7 Newton. That is 12 minus 5, which is 7. That is another case. Now, there's another case when you have two vectors inclined at an angle. If you have two vectors that are perpendicular to one another. Case 3 now. Case 3, we have two vectors perpendicular to each other. Two vectors perpendicular to each other. When two vectors are perpendicular to each other, it means they are at right angles to one another. Let's assume this is the first vector, and this is our F2. Let's assume this is our F2, 12 Newton, then 5 Newton, at right angle to one another. Now, to find the resultant of this vector, we are going to complete this diagram, and this is going to give me a rectangle. This is going to give me a rectangle at 90 degrees. Now, to find the resultant, you are going to find the diagonal. It's going to be the diagonal of these. So this is my half. And to get the resultant here, you can make use of your Pythagoras theorem. To find the using Pythagoras theorem, which says hypotenuse square, which is our resultant, equals to adjacent square F2 plus opposite square F1 square. My R square It's going to give me 12 square plus 5 square. So my half is going to give me square root of 12 plus 5. So this is how to find the resultant. When you have two vectors that are perpendicular to each other, it means that the two vectors are at right angles to each other, which is 90 degrees. Now, we have another case when you have two vectors at an acute angle to one another. Two vectors at an acute angle to one another. Acute angles are angles between 0 and 90 degrees. Acute angles are angles between 0 and 90 degrees. Now, let's assume we have this vector. Let's assume it's at angle 55 degrees. So we have F1 and our F2. Now, what are we going to do here? We are going to complete this shape, and we're going to give us this is going to give us a parallelogram. This is going to give me a parallelogram, and the diagonal is going to give me the resultant. Now, to find the resultant of two vectors acting at 55 degrees to one another, I'm going to find the resultant now, and that's the diagonal of this parallelogram. Now, before you can solve this, you must know the characteristics of a parallelogram. Now, before I can get this, I must know that in a parallelogram, the two opposite angles are equal. The two opposite angles are equal. Let me say I have a parallelogram A, B, C, D. Now, angle A will give me angle B. So if this place is 55 degrees, angle C will give me 55 degrees. So now for me to get two other angles, because angle B must be equal to angle D, and you all know that the total angle in a parallelogram is 360 degrees. The total angle in the parallelogram is 60 degrees. Now, for me to get angle B and angle B, I'm going to 360 minus 55 plus 55. 55 plus 55 will give me 110. 110. Now, 360 minus 110. 360 minus 110 is going to give me 250. So this is going to give me 250 degrees. So if B and D is 250 degrees, for me to get B now, it's going to be 250 divided by 2. For me to get angle B and angle D. So I'm going to divide 250 by 2. And that is going to give me 125 degrees. So angle B will give me 125, angle D will give me 125. So it should be easy for me now to get my resultant. I can make use of my cosine rule. I'll make use of cosine rule to get my resultants. So when you have two angles, two vectors acting at an acute angle to one another, this is how you are going to solve it. You must know the properties of a parallelogram before you can solve question based on this. So for further question and answer, you can drop it in the comment section. You can meet me in the next video for more explanation. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and share.